Hello, and welcome to the official Hacks podcast from HBO Max and Same Boat Studios. I'm Paul W. Downs, co-showrunner and co-creator of Hacks. Joining me are the other brilliant Hacks showrunners and creators and pillars of the Little Debbie community, Jen Statsky and Lucia Aniello.
Hello, Hacksonistas.
Hello, hello.
Now, that was in Lucia order and Jen order.
Thank you for calling me brilliant, Paul.
Yes.
You're welcome, Jen.
I'm glad somebody else didn't write that down for you to say.
No, I just came up with it on the fly. We're back to talk about episode 2 of season 5, which is titled #1 Fan and written by Ariel Carlin, who I love, and directed by Lucia Aniello, who I love so much I married. At the beginning of the episode, we find Deborah, Ava, and the rest of the gang in New York City, which is so cool. And their mission is to lock down Madison Square Garden for Deborah's comeback. But it turns out that's easier said than done.
We can't just let anyone perform here.
I'm sorry, isn't there a live true crime podcast playing tonight?
Murder My Stupid Ass Please has over 90 million monthly listeners.
So Deborah must return to her fans, the Little Debbies, for support. But again, easier said than done.
What is the problem?
The problem is that you went Hollywood.
I did not go Hollywood.
Yes, you did. You haven't sent out Deborah's do's and don'ts in almost 2 years. I don't know what to do and what not to do. Sometimes I just sit in the dark.
Deborah is left to reckon with how she's treated her fans and Ava over the past few years and how those relationships are intertwined. Whoa. And Ava's birthday party brings some clarity around her relationship with Deborah.
Can you believe that?
Happy birthday, Ava.
Happy birthday, Ava.
Isn't it so cute, those photos of Hannah, little
really
baby Hannah?
Sweet. And that song.
Oh my God, Jesse McCartney.
Jesse McCartney. We'll get there.
What a thrill. Okay.
God, it was so cool being in New York with this cast. I actually had so much fun.
It was really fun seeing you guys out in the streets.
I love being out in the streets with them. And actually, I've never experienced this because we obviously made Broad City there.
Yes.
I've never experienced crowds of people on the opposite corners on the street filming and taking photos.
I think Hannah said she thought it was because now with like TikTok, Instagram culture and people, like everybody's a paparazzo. The city was louder than I remember by 10 or 100 times.
I hope that isn't because we've gotten older.
Oh, shoot.
I hope the city's gotten louder.
Well, it was like also we were shooting in Midtown. And I think Midtown is going through some kind of construction transition. It's transitioning itself.
Midtown is transitioning, yeah.
But it was so loud. And I know it's like, sure, New York's loudy, bitch. But I'm like, no. It was like on another level. It was like people were coming into Video Village and screaming in my face. People were air horning my ears.
Yeah.
People were kicking me in the shins.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
It was also just felt like the most hectic New York kind of like people running around. Like, remember when we were for all your gifts that you guys are carrying into Amanda Weinberg's, like not everything was there in the day, so we were rushing around. Rob Tokar's our production designer, like sprinted to get that giant bottle of wine that Damien was holding.
Now I gotta say something. I was given the heaviest basket in the world.
You did talk about this fruit basket a lot. How heavy was it?
It was so heavy.
How heavy was it?
My back was giving out. I could barely carry it.
And you're a very strong man. So this is shocking.
That's what is crazy is how heavy it was. There were like blocks of gold in it.
I think so. I think it was.
I was
I
being
think it was a
dragged
prank.
down.
I think it was a prank that they weighted it down.
I don't know what it was. Some kind of hazing, but it was not easy to carry. No. And I will say, I think the city's gotten more crowded. I think there are more people. I know everyone left during COVID. They're back.
They are.
Everybody's back. Or they're working there. They're coming in. They're commuting in, and it's especially in Midtown.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're around Penn Station. It's crowded up there.
It is. What was the click about you just
Imagine if some of our listeners are in
I don't know what is happening to me post.
That was cool. You should do like a soundboard.
Oh my God, what if I have sounds in here? I have like, I do like
yeah,
all
you should
kinds
have
of
like a morning Zoo Crew radio
I would
soundboard.
love that.
In another universe, the three of us as a Zoo Crew
is good.
Is
I would
fun.
love that.
Here's the thing though. I think because it's pod era, I can just say, okay, like whoopee cushion sound, and then it'll just happen.
Of course.
You know,
Watch us do it right now.
Whoopee cushion sound, slide whistle, bell, and clown honk. Thank you.
But I guess I'm just saying, wouldn't the three of us be funded as a Zoo Crew in
I would
general?
love that. That would be a
great.
dream job for me.
A job, well, except for the waking up so early, not great.
Oh,
I know, but we would get used to this.
We get used to that, and then the three of us
Would
just.
you?
That's literally,
and then we would get French
You have to go to
toast
bed
after.
You have to go to bed though at like 6 p.m.
Yeah, but think about it. Your job is like done, Kelly Ripa style, at like it's 9:30 a.m. You're done.
You're going to Barney's? Not anymore, but you're going to somewhere like that?
Yes.
You're going downtown to...
Well, where are we? Do we live
Country
in
of-
Do we live in New York City?
I think we do.
Yeah,
Okay.
in this version, we live in New York City. We wake up, our whole job is hanging out and talking for
love
I
a
guess that's
couple
what a
hours.
podcast is, you guys. I guess, and
then
I
we
guess
go
we have one.
But in
Whoa, this is like
But
what's that?
We don't get like paid enough to live with
and
the
also
podcast.
This is an Inception kind of vibe.
this is finite. I know that this is 2 of 10. I
Yes,
feel it already
yes.
slipping out of my fingers.
And also,
don't
like,
say
they-
that Barbara Streisand's gonna cry.
and we also like are talking about something else. Like the Zoo Crew's just doing pranks.
Responding to the news of the day.
Yeah,
But
they're like,
does that get crazy? That like, okay, I wouldn't mind Breakfast Club style having a guest on and
yeah,
interviewing
we
a
could do
guest
that.
and laughing and
We'd rock
clapping,
at that too.
playing some good music.
Yeah.
But I do feel like a lot of morning shows you have to like do like Ryan's Roses and like prank people with roses.
But that's
or,
like the 10:30 slot. We're like morning. We're
Oh.
earlier.
Morning. We're waking people up. We're telling them what's going on with the day.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're
we're
like, watch out because Route 80 is jammed today.
Yes.
287 is looking
Well,
rough.
yes, we can do those readings, but also usually there's a person who specifically does the traffic. It's like, over to you, Candace. And she's like, hey, guys.
Right. All right.
Let's talk about the relationship between Deborah and her fans, the Little Debbies.
You know, it's the longest relationship of her life. It's such an important, not only part of her life, but part of our show, you know?
Yes.
Her relationship with her audience.
We have wanted to do this episode for a long time. We were always talking about these autograph conventions and how unique they are and what a funny setting for an episode.
And I think what they say is actually quite accurate, which is that Deborah Vance has outgrown them a bit. She's kind of gone Hollywood. She's had this late night show. And so she hasn't been doing the kinds of things that she probably would have been doing season 1.
Yes.
So this is sort of a return to activate her base.
And we went to an actual autograph convention.
Yes,
To
for
research.
We went to the Hollywood show at the Marriott in Burbank.
Yes.
And it was fantastic.
The autograph conventions are an interesting world. And shout out to some cameos we have in this episode, like Soleil Moon Frye.
Hi, Soleil. You are so fun.
So
You're so
lovely.
sweet for doing the show.
She was so sweet.
loved having you part
she
of the
was so
Hacks
sweet
family.
to the people on the day, like the day players in line playing the fans.
What
she
a
was
bright light.
Yes.
one of those people that is so incredibly positive. There's something also in this episode, and just in fandom in general, that is so sweet. It's so sweet to see Jimmy being such a fan of Xena Warrior Princess.
And Renee O'Connor.
And
Well,
Renee
you know, I think
O'Connor.
Little Debbies have a degree of quirk to them, right? They're very funny characters. They're comedy characters. They're certainly unique and idiosyncratic. And I think it's nice to see one of our main ensemble also share in the love of television and have a similar kind of fandom to them. You know, I feel like it grounds it because it is a cool thing to love things. I think being enthusiastic and loving things and being a fan rocks. I think that's cool.
It's so cool because what you're doing is you're identifying something that makes you happy and you're chasing that love by bringing more of that world into your life.
Now, there's a limit. There's a line.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. There's a
Sure, of
line.
course,
Okay, let's
of
all be
course.
safe.
Turn toxic.
Let's understand boundaries. But yes, I think it is really nice. And I myself was a watcher and a fan of Xena Warrior Princess. So it was really cool to have Renee O'Connor, Gabrielle, on the show.
What do you think attracted to you to Xena Warrior Princess?
The leather outfits.
Okay,
I don't know. I think I've always loved complicated, layered relationships between women.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that we chose that show? And I actually was a fan of that show. And it also is it's not a mentorship. It is a love story also.
Of course.
Yeah. But you also love Ab Fab, which is a similar
That's right.
relationship between
right.
women.
He also loved MacGyver. So he's really a man of
I did love MacGyver.
multitudes.
I did love MacGyver. Good show.
Have you ever thought about doing a rewatch podcast? You know, they're really big right now where you go through old episodes and discuss them.
I don't think enough people want to hear me talk about that.
Girl, shut
Are you
up!
kidding?
We love the
No.
show. We watched it.
So Jimmy meets Renee O'Connor and pitches a rewatch podcast, which I think is actually a great idea. Honestly, I think they should do it.
I think they should do
I think they should. I think that would be huge.
It's cool that rewatch podcasts have become so popular. Like, when do you think we'll do the Hacks rewatch podcast?
Oh, like going back?
Yeah.
I don't know because we already have the current podcast. Like, it isn't that
Right.
kind of overkill to go back and be like, stuff I forgot from last time.
It needs a hook. 2 out of 3 of us, and it doesn't matter what combo, needs to have a falling out. And so,
wow.
the hook of the rewatch podcast is repairing the relationship.
You know who had a falling out in this episode? Deborah and her Little Debbies.
I miss Marcus. Damien never sends us locks of your hair.
I sent you 2 suspicious packages and didn't even receive a cease and desist letter. You used to care.
Okay, that's it. I need a break.
10-minute break.
They are PO'd. They're pissed off.
Yep.
Pardon my French.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because she hasn't been in one of these in a long time.
know.
She's gone Hollywood. She's neglected them, and they're not wrong.
They're not wrong. And like we said earlier in the episode, it's like She had a lot of time on her hands, and she knew where her bread was buttered. And it was with her fans. And so she really attended to that relationship for herself because she had nothing else going on. But also, it was good for business.
Yeah.
You know, this was really the height of her QVC time that I think is when, and it was also like the very beginnings. She was early in the internet, I think, which is interesting. And also, that's not something we really explore very thoroughly in our show is her internet presence.
Right.
But I think it's because it's not dramatic to watch.
It's also, it dates the show in such a way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like very of the moment.
Right.
In a way that while we want the show to be fresh and reflect culture that we live in, I do think it's nice. You know, I love watching shows where you do ignore some technology and it feels like it could be any time.
Yeah. I like that we talk about Deborah's fans on like the message boards, like old like 90s style AOL dial-up internet stuff.
And it just it feels more delicious.
And we had a couple really funny little Debbies that didn't make the final cut just for time. You know, I think we're really sensitive to the timing of an episode and the rhythm of a scene. And so we did lose some, but as a fun bonus, we're going to play those lines for you now.
You stop selling your Deborah Vance dream catcher. I don't care if it's politically incorrect. I need you to protect my dreams.
I'm very upset that your website doesn't take Discover Card anymore.
I was devastated that you didn't donate to my dog's GoFundMe for her dialysis.
You stopped updating your online food diary.
There have been no new fat-free recipes in your newsletter in more than a year. You're clearly rehashing old ones.
Why did you leave your late-night show for that wily ginger imp?
Also, fun fact, that sequence of people complaining to her was also shot where they were all looking into lens as if you were the POV of Deborah. But it was just a little too, it just like took you out of it.
That is from a directing perspective interesting to talk about though.
Well, it didn't work, so not that interesting, I guess. But we shot them at the same time so that we could use either one. And actually, her shoulders comped it.
This conversation is making me think of what's a word for a deleted scene like a scene that never happened because we didn't all agree on it. I'm going to bring these up whenever I think of them.
Please do.
And this is making me think of the episode 1 great debate, microfiche.
Oh, let's talk about it.
Do we remember the microfiche?
So in episode 1 of season 5 at EGOT, there was a scene that I will say I really wanted where before she comes to Ava and is like, I figured it out, I'm going to EGOT, where she goes to the Las Vegas Public Library and starts doing research on microfiche. And I believe somebody pitched that she wrote with a quill pen.
Well, I do think for some reason she did have like small seeing glasses.
That is true.
Like Mrs. Claus style glasses.
Yes, she did have those.
Which is interesting because it's not like she needs them to read small things. The microfiche is projected on a screen. You know, like it is. But it seems like she needed tiny glasses.
Yes. Right. It's almost as if we don't know how microfiche works.
And that would be part of her journey to figuring out EGOT would be the research going into like all obituaries that have EGOT. The first line is EGOT.
And let's talk about why it didn't happen.
Okay.
Sure. Oh,
because you didn't want to.
No.
Well,
was it
I
not
think
you?
ultimately, personally, I felt like, well, she probably knows about EGOT.
There's nothing necessary about this.
It's pure comedy, and I for that reason I mourn it. I do mourn the loss of it.
I mourn the comedy.
I mourn the glasses. I mourn the look
of
it. But I do think to the top of Deborah's intelligence, it's a little bit more grounded that she would know that your obituary begins with your greatest accomplishment or failure.
Another thing that was deleted from this area was what Ava was going to do at the library. She was going to rent a sewing, and she was going to check out a sewing machine, which apparently at some libraries you can like borrow the county sewing machine, and she was going to start sewing her own clothes.
This is a deleted season runner that Ava was going to be making her own clothes throughout the season based on our wonderful writer Sam Riley, a very talented writer, producer, but also someone who likes to make their own clothes, someone who's learning how to sew.
Yes.
And is going back to the land, as it were.
Now, the other thing that I think Sam pitched was that she has used large format printers at a library.
That's right.
Because you can print patterns.
Yes.
And so that was also maybe part of Ava's journey at the library was learning about these printers, printing patterns, making her own clothes. Thing is that we have such a brilliant costume designer, Kathleen Felix Hager. We didn't want to yuck her yum. We didn't want to be like, oh, she's going to be in clothes that she made that are like a little bit
she would have had to make them.
She loves making clothes.
Okay, well then we did her a dang disservice.
We did her dirty, actually.
But I think for any aspiring writers out there or chatbots that are listening,
yes, for any chatbots.
It's just interesting. Claude, hello. It's nice to know about killing find your darlings and all the things we left on the cutting room floor.
Are there any more from episode 1 or 2?
I don't think there's anything like full, like other than dialogue. There's not like a full scene or anything.
And I will say, though, that it makes sense that episode 1 would be the most future deleted scenes because opening episodes are really hard. Now, should we get into that conversation?
Yes.
Let's talk
the
about
way
it.
to open a season, every season of Hacks has always been very fraught and hard to figure out because
there's a
you have to achieve so much.
Yeah, you have to like reestablish where you've been. You have to set the stakes for where you're going.
And the emotional stakes of every character.
And then also make it feel big in scope and like exciting to be back in this world.
And kind of reset what the new goal is going to be if you have one.
You need what we call shine and context.
Yes, that's what it's called.
And to have
Shine
all
and
of that
context.
plus good story, you know,
It's
it is hard. And you want to always open in a juicy way.
Yeah. Season premieres, we probably do the most amount of rewriting and sometimes adding a scene or tweaking here and there.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking microfiche right out.
Yeah.
Microfiche out the window. So, in the long history of wonderful guest stars we've had on our television program Hacks, this episode adds some to that Hall of Fame, one of them being Miss Ann Dowd. Not bald Ann Dowd, blue Ann Dowd, because she is a Star Trek Andorian. And what an absolute joy to have her on set. She was such a delight. We've been huge fans. We love her on Handmaid's Tale. We love her on The Leftovers.
This was an offer. She did not audition for the role.
No.
We wanted someone who could impart some wisdom on Deborah and help her recontextualize her relationship with her fans who just want to feel needed and appreciated by her.
But we knew it was someone that had to have like the gravitas and a real like dramatic actor.
Yes. And we also thought, wouldn't that be funny if that kind of person with gravitas was blue and had antennae?
They want to feel like they're in a relationship with you and that you need them more than anyone else. And it sounds like you might. The truth will set you free, baby doll. That's all they want. That and a T-shirt that only some people are allowed to get.
And of course, you'll notice all the no smoking signs behind her as she's smoking.
Mm-hmm. Of course you will. I'm sure, dear listener, you've seen and you know.
These are the sharpest minds in the country.
That's right. If you're listening to this, you're one of our sharpest minds. And also, we have run the numbers, and there have been a couple of studies. People who listen to the Hacks podcast do get smarter.
Yes.
By a quotient of 80%. They're able to recall things better.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to figure out math faster.
Mm-hmm.
And they're able to just honestly win friends over better.
Mm-hmm.
They actually did a study where they had horses listen to the Hacks podcast, and those horses became completely verbal at the end of it.
It's scientifically and mathematically the opposite of using ChatGPT.
Yes.
Instead of your brain deteriorating and shrinking, it expands. Yes. And if you're a horse, you become verbal.
Because part of it is you're using that part of your brain that imagines. You're imagining us naked, talking together in this area. All of us on this beanbag chair. Speaking to each other.
All naked on one beanbag chair.
It's a big chair.
It's a big chair.
And we are so happy you're here with us.
Anyway.
What about her birthday? Oh, soft Deb.
What a sweet birthday party.
You know, we've talked about Ava's birthday for a while too, or have we not?
Yes.
30th birthday being a big milestone. Obviously a time when you maybe analyze where you've been, where you're going.
And this originated in season 4, really, when they were on the boat in Singapore, when she says, "I'm your only friend. Isn't that weird?" And you could see the pain in Ava's eyes.
Yeah.
That she knows that she's her only friend, but she doesn't think that's weird. And the fact that Deborah judges it is so cruel. And we just didn't want that to be something that she said, and then we moved on from it. So we felt that in the second episode, it could be something that gets brought back up again. And, you know, I think Deborah in that moment was just saying that to be mean and to hurt Ava's feelings. But also, I think to some extent, I think she hasn't really wanted to admit how much she has valued Ava's friendship in her life.
And it's also like, I think season 1, 2, Deborah says something like that and never addresses it again. And she's come far in the sense that she says this thing and it does make her feel guilty. And sure, she doesn't address it directly, but she does, you know, throwing this party is like really an admission of guilt and of wanting to make it up to her, which is not something the Deborah you meet at the beginning of the series would have done.
And to make up for it, Deborah gets her childhood crush, her dream, Jesse McCartney, to perform a private concert, which, by the way, was a dream for Hannah as well, because she did have a Jesse McCartney poster on her wall, I believe, in her childhood bedroom. And so The tears you see
Hannah
on screen are
and
real.
Ava in episode 110 has a Jesse McCartney poster.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because we said to Hannah when we were set decorating, that's her childhood bedroom. We were like, who did you have? And she said, Jesse McCartney. I was a massive, massive, massive fan.
So it was a huge get for us to get him to do the show. And we were so happy to watch literal Hannah and Ava squeal.
Yeah.
And
Hannah was
cry.
bawling. Hannah was truly.
All right. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. She was.
She'll tell you. She was weeping.
And she was like, after we cut, she was like, gave a speech to the crew and the
Yeah.
cast about how much she like is so in love with doing this job and how special this is for her.
It was like her real birthday.
It was like her real birthday. It wasn't too far after her real birthday.
Yeah.
And also, I think Hannah has like, especially more than probably anybody, gone through this process being so in touch with acknowledging as it's happening how special it has been. So she also, I think, was a little thrown by the fact there were all those photos blown up of her face. It was very like, this is your life, you know, and it is kind of her life. And so, I don't know, it was really sweet. She's so
and
sweet.
to come onto the show when you're that young too, like she's like grown up with it. It's wild.
But you know what we're able to do in this moment? In Deborah's guilt, she's able to reveal something that I don't think we've heard before on the show, which is that she's always been popular, but she's never really had a best friend. Beyond her sister, she's never really had that. And so this admission to Ava is a kind of a big deal.
It is.
And it's a new piece of information for both Ava, the character, and our audience, hopefully.
I never had a best friend. Well, I mean, you know, my sister, you know, we know how that went. So I just relied more and more on the little Debbies, and it was as much for me as it was for them. But then I met you. And I didn't need them so much anymore.
Well, it makes sense. I'm your number one fan.
Do you think Deborah is Ava's number one fan?
Definitely. No one else likes her.
That's not true.
I'm joking.
I love her.
They're each
love her.
They're each other's number one fans for sure.
No, I just mean out in the world. I think it's so fun for us to write people beating down Ava's ass. So that's why I say that people don't like her. But it's not that people don't like her.
And Deborah rides hard for her.
Oh, yeah.
She always has.
She always has. And she defends her all the time. She walked away from her dream for her. If that isn't the greatest declaration of love I've ever seen, damn.
Yeah. She's our number one fan for sure.
Yeah, you know, that scene was so, like, we really wanted to make sure it didn't feel melodramatic and it wasn't too much. And so that
saccharine.
was, saccharine. So that was something that we were really fine-tuning throughout the process, wouldn't you say?
Yes, because it is something that's so nice to see, a moment of intimacy, especially early in the season, to sort of set the stage for what the season will be like and, you know, to declare that Deborah and Ava are in a good place, that they really are in harmony.
That's
and
why
working toward the same goal.
The end of the episode is so lovely too, because
yes.
obviously Deborah finds out she got the MSG date, but just the two of them hearing the news together, celebrating is so fun and
the high-fiving. And we get to, you know, we reintroduce the series-long runner of Ava's hands being big and Deborah saying, it's like high-fiving the Hulk. But you know what's interesting? Ava's not offended. She laughs and pushes her, gives her a little shove. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's what
fun.
Jean described when she visited us on episode 1 of this podcast, which is like their ribbing this season it's more love taps than anything.
Yeah.
And even though since the beginning they're bickering, they're ribbing each other as part of their love language, it feels more so than ever now.
Yeah, it feels more tender than ever.
Jesse McCartney, we were talking about Jesse. He is only one of many, many special cameos on this episode. Our guest stars are stacked, and we've already spoken about Ann Dowd, but we have to give some shout outs to Hannah Pilkus.
Oh my
who
God.
plays
so funny.
The quote unquote Ava fan. It
Yeah.
turns out she's actually an OG Little Debbie, a third generation Little Debbie.
Yep.
And she's just trying to get in Ava's good graces to replace her, get some intel.
So you didn't like any of my tweets? They're not jokes, they're thought poems!
And Alyssa Lamperis as Ava's childhood friend Jenny.
My favorite line in the episode, I think, was delivered by Alyssa Lamperis when she walks out of the kitchen and she says, "A lot of salt and pepper shakers. Think you got enough?"
And credit to Alyssa, she did improvise that.
Yes.
Yes, she did. And we give that credit where it's due.
And
most of the show is written by us. But it's also
That was the only line ever improvised, all 5 seasons.
Yeah, that is so funny.
That was,
No,
you know,
not
that's such a like Massachusetts like digging kind of a thing.
That's why I love it. It is so
Yes.
Massachusetts. It's like, you think you're better than me?
Yeah.
You think you're better
You
than
got
me?
enough?
Fucking
Like,
salt
why do you
and
have all
pepper
this?
shaker?
Why do you need this?
Why do you need all this salt and pepper?
Yeah.
I remember when I wore a leather jacket to my like 10-year high school reunion.
I'm loving this. This is why
That
we're on the
was-
pod. Barbara,
That
cozy
was
up.
such a moment. People were like, nice leather. You got your
my
leather
God.
jacket, from Hollywood.
I'm going to kill them.
They meant it with love.
You know who else joins us in this fabulous episode?
Yes.
Is our Amanda Weinberg.
Oh my
Alana
my.
Eubank.
Alana Eubank we've wanted to work with forever.
I got to tell you, this is a woman who steals a scene in everything she's in. Let's
She
name,
is
let's name some
so-
of her gems.
Okay, she is so good in Euphoria.
She is so good.
Especially the episode where they're watching the play, and she's
I was going to start with
unbelievable.
Brady Bunch.
Brady Bunch movie.
She's so good.
Which Jean is also in, by the way.
That's right. Jean and Alana stole that film, in my opinion.
Oh, she plays
No
a
offense to the
friend of
bunch.
Marsha who's in love with Marsha, and it's so funny. And don't forget how fabulous she is in a little movie you may have heard of called Legally Blonde.
And don't forget about Waiting.
Oh, she's
so funny in
good
Waiting.
in Waiting.
And relevant to episode 1, she's also part of a very talented partnership because I believe her husband is a Grammy award-winning musician.
Yes.
He's got the G.
He's got the
He's
G.
got the G. So anyways, we were so happy to work with her. And after working with her in this episode, we were like, maybe she should be in a future episode. And we wrote another scene for her.
because she was that good.
She was that good, but also that episode needed that scene. But also we wrote for her more because she was such a delight to work with.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about writing a character for Alana Eubank, you should.
You should.
Thank you, Alana, for joining us. She's not here on the pod. I just mean on the show.
Oh my God, Alana's been here the whole time.
She's been very quiet. She's sick. She fell asleep.
One of my favorite moments of her is in the end when she's on the toilet and the toilet paper comes out. And it says Deb for MSG, and she's like, "Hello!" And then she does this little like
She kind of like bites the air.
jaw movement
Yes.
that we kept in. It was so
so
funny.
good.
You know, I'd like to mention another guest star in this episode, Bane Gibby,
Oh, yeah.
who is someone that we have known outside of the show, who was brilliant on Enlightened.
And the comeback.
And the comeback. She was the woman who presented the seed art, the portrait of Deborah that she and her late mother had made.
Yeah,
I don't know where that seed art is now. Do you?
don't.
We should
That's
get
a
it.
great point. We should have that.
We could sell it for charity.
Yes.
I would love that. There's also, I will say, the props department did an amazing job. They made like 10 of them that were all different.
Yes.
Right.
We chose the one that we felt was the most striking. I'm going to use the word striking. Shocking. Some of them were so good that Deborah be flattered.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
They make sure she looks snatched. So MSG is Deborah's quest for the season. Now, we, of course, are aware that comedians have sold out MSG, but it does feel like for Deborah,
It's only like a handful.
yeah, and not very many women especially.
Right.
So for her, even though, yes, Murder My Stupid Ass Please is selling it out, for a pure stand-up to be selling it out is huge. And especially for the obituary, if it's the last or one of the last shows she does, it's going to be something that is written about.
It is the marquee venue in America.
Sure.
It is like the number one spot. And to sell it out as a woman at her age would be history making and record breaking. And so we thought not only would this realistically be a worthy goal for a stand-up comedian, but for someone like Deborah who wants the biggest win of her career, a legacy-defining win, this felt spot on.
And a big splashy place to break the non-compete when she's finally allowed to speak.
That's right.
What was your favorite line of the episode, Lucia?
Oh, of the whole episode?
Yeah, favorite joke, favorite line.
Okay, let me think. Okay, I know this isn't like my favorite. This isn't like my favorite line or joke, but I do always think it's so funny when Ava says that she was voted most likely to showrun in her class superlatives, even though she invented it for herself.
That is very funny.
I just
really
think
funny.
it's such a perfect Ava line because it's like
it's correct.
What's your favorite line, Jen?
I think
the
my
episode?
favorite line in the episode, and there are many, but I love the line delivered by the little Debbie, played by Cynthia Kenya, when she says, "You discontinued your car insurance, and now I'm uninsured."
And that woman is an actual friend of Jean's because when we took Jean's Christmas party this year, she was there.
And that's what that's what all of our listeners want to know. Were we at Jean's holiday party? Yes. Are we invited? Yes. Do we go? Yes. That's the kind of relationship we have with Jean. We go to the holiday parties and then we end up seeing our co-stars there.
And what's so
Crazy.
funny is we didn't expect her to be there. So
No.
we all were like oh my God, hi, you're so great in the episode. She honestly got scared.
She was definitely
Well,
scared of us,
she was so great in the episode that she got a second line, which was,
You never published another book of Dabokus, and the regular Sudokus are just too hard.
very good.
She's amazing.
Yes.
You know what I'd also like to mention about this episode?
What's that?
Is that, A, it's beautifully directed by Lucia.
Oh,
No, I agree.
It's also written by Ariel Carlin, who has been, other than us, kind of on the show the longest because she was our season 1 writer assistant, and now she has been on the writing staff for many years and a producer. And she wrote this episode and did an excellent job. And I think it's very fitting she wrote this episode because she is an absolute TV fanatic.
Yes.
She is a real fan.
She is someone who, in our writer's room, probably watched the most TV and had the most encyclopedic knowledge
She
of
is
television.
actually the person, thankfully, who can say they've done something similar on this show.
Yes.
So we can't do that.
And she calls it out all the time, and we are grateful.
Well, thank goodness. Because it's hard to watch all the brilliant TV there is in the world.
And also, if we want to give her even more credit, you guys want to?
I think we've done enough, but sure.
I had lunch with her before we had made the show, and I was telling her about this idea, and she was like, "Oh yeah, it's kind of like a dark mentorship."
Oh, that's right.
And she kind of coined that phrase, at least in my knowledge. I don't know if she's invented it, but she coined it that we then have used it as a way to describe the relationship. And that came from just getting lunch with my friend.
And now I want to give one more piece of lore about Ariel Carlin.
Yes.
Our dear. That is, we asked her as a writer's assistant to help generate some sides, meaning just some lines to use for an audition. For Kiki, that is played so brilliantly by Poppy Lou. And she wrote a scene that we essentially did very little rewriting and inserted into the show, which is the scene in Las Vegas in episode 2, where Kiki is giving Ava a ride in her hand-me-down Rolls Royce, and she sings the Selena Gomez. The Selena Gomez song.
Yeah. And we were
which I was unfamiliar with, but it was absolutely perfect.
It was perfect. And we were like, oh, she must be a writer for this show.
Yes.
Yep. We must hire her as a
And
writer.
we did.
And we did.
And we're so happy.
So thank you, Ariel, for all you gave
all
to
you do.
Hacks. Listeners, we'll tell you something interesting about each and every one of our writers this season.
We'll
and
try.
then at the end, you'll vote. Who do you like the best? The Hacks writer off. And yes, will be options.
Whoa, that's intense.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, Barbara. Well, that's it for episode 2. Thank you for joining us and listening to us chit-chat and become even closer with each other. This has been... Lucia was touched, Paul uninfected. This has been the official Hacks podcast with Lucia Aniello, Paul W. Downs, and me, Jen Statsky. The Hacks podcast is produced by HBO Max in collaboration with Same Boat Studios. Our executive producers are Gabrielle Lewis and Barry Finkel. Our senior producer is Emmanuel Hapsis.
Our show is mixed by Hannes Brown, and our technical director is In-Sung Huang. Special thanks to Michael Gluckstadt, Allison Cohen-Sirokach, and Kenya Reyes from the HBO Max podcast team.
You can watch all of Hacks on HBO Max, and we will be back next week to dig into episode 3. Until then,